I'm Daniel James. Well, with hits like Staying Out for the Summer, In a Room, and the top five hit Good Enough. Our special guest this week is singer-songwriter from Dodgy, Nigel Clark. Hi, Nigel. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Daniel. Nice to be here.
Good to have you on, sir. It looks very bright and breezy where you are today.
Yes, lovely. I've been down to the beach earlier and caught the sun with the dog, so yeah, it's lovely. I'm trying to
I've
cool down
noticed you've
now.
got the old guns out there, I mean, guns for a man from an indie band. They're usually
Yeah,
pale and skinny.
yeah. I've always been 6'2" and big chested, unfortunately. So, I look more like a rugby player than a front man of an indie
It
band.
sounds like something from a Carry On movie, doesn't it? 6'2" and busty.
Yeah.
So how you doing? You doing well?
I'm really good, thank you. I'm a bit tired. We had a big sort of festival weekend this weekend and a lot of driving. I mean, it's more driving than gigging these days. But yeah, it was brilliant. I'm doing Glastonbury tomorrow, so I'm very excited about that.
So
So,
you first did Glastonbury, am I right, in 2009?
oh no, we first did Glastonbury in 1992.
Wow, so you're basically Glastonbury regulars then.
Yeah, yeah, we have been. We did it. We've done it many times. We obviously played on the main stage of Radiohead in '97, which was amazing, which was our sort of peak. And then we've been back since. And this is a solo adventure for me tomorrow, so I'm very excited. So I'm only going there for a day because we've got more gigs, but I'm really excited to be there.
Oh, fantastic. To be able to dip in and out of
I
Glastonbury
know.
with the band and also as yourself. I mean, that is
Yeah.
fantastic. So are you playing a particular stage?
Well, it's sort of the festival doesn't open really until Friday, does it? So
Mm.
it's not really an announced thing. But yeah, it's called the Bell Tent. It's where all the glamping, camping things and all that are. So I think anyone can access it. But
Yeah,
yeah, there's like Chris Difford's playing and Newton Faulkner and
fantastic.
people like that. So it's going to be a good little night tomorrow.
Have you tailored your songs? Is it just your stuff? Are you going to do some dodgy stuff? What do you do when you're on your own?
Good question. I do a lot of stuff. I always play a couple of cover versions. I've got this thing where if I like a song, and I need to know why I like it, so I learn it. So I'll be playing probably a Townes Van Zandt song and a Tom Waits song. Maybe I do a lot of Northern Soul songs on my acoustic, so I'll folk them up with finger picking. So
So
like the night.
what's your northern soul favourites then?
I've got quite a lot. So I do the Snake. I do I Love You, and I also do the Night by Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons. All
Wow.
on finger. They're great. They're really good. So mixed it with dodgy songs and a few solo songs and maybe one I'm writing at the moment. Yeah. So you get the
I'm on my way
studio in.
down. I'm getting in the car. It sounds great.
Yeah.
So
I never do the same thing really.
where were you gigging at the weekend?
Oh God, so Southend, we do Southend on Saturday, and then we had to drive all the way across the country to Croyd Bay Harbour in North Devon, which is
Mhm.
beautiful, but it was a 260 mile drive.
Wow. And do you do the driving or do you share it?
Because we all live in different places. I take the crew with me because I pick them up in Worcester, and I live in West Wales. And some of the guys live in London, some of them live in Salisbury. So we're all over the place. So we don't
Yeah.
have a van anymore. Well, I have a camper van, so I'm all right.
You sound like I was going to say, hey, I'm all right. You guys make your own way there.
Yeah, it's what
Don't
I did with my
postpone it.
money.
So listen, it's great talking about the present, and we'll come back to that shortly. But I want to go right back because I've been reading lots of different biographies, and I've got a question for you because I've read several biographies, and it says Dodgy formed in Hounslow in 1990, Dodgy formed in South London, Dodgy formed in Birmingham, and I'm like, come on, Nigel, put this record straight. Were you living in Primrose Hill? Were you living in Stoke Newington? Were you living in Hounslow? Or were you just on the run?
We lived in all those places. I loved it in Primrose Hill, if I'm honest. We lived there in the 90s, me and my wife. Um, this is one of our sort of pains, really, because every year all the bands, that we sort of hang around with, they all do Christmas gigs in like Liverpool or, wherever they're from.
Yeah.
But because when we formed, we moved down I'm from a place called Redditch in Worcestershire, and
Mhm.
Matthew's from Bromsgrove in Worcestershire. It's like the Shelbyville. Bromsgrove, and then Andy, we moved to London and we formed Dodgy in London. So we are kind of essentially a London band, albeit adopted. But we recorded our first album in Liverpool, so with Ian Brody. So a lot of people say we're from Liverpool, and we played Brighton once, and people thought we were from Brighton as well.
So
So
really, you're just interlopers. You know, you can
yeah.
be like, we're a hometown band all over the country.
Yeah, yeah, we're proper. Yeah, it's good, isn't it? So I mean, and so you don't have that thing to fall back on because I think a lot of bands, they fall back on like where they're from. Like you
Hmm.
support that local team and you have it draped over your amplifier and stuff like that. We've never had that, mind you. I don't really like football and music being brought together. It's not
Well,
one of
there'd
my
not be enough space on the amp to put all the scarves if you were doing it.
favorite. No, we all support different teams anyway.
Talking about Ian Brody, can I just take you back? What was it like working with Ian Brody? What's he like as a producer? Was it very collaborative, or what was it like?
I think at the time, I mean, Ian's a lovely bloke. I mean, I love working with Ian. He's so encouraging. I mean, he's a little bit older than the band, but he was so encouraging of us back in that day because we were sort of like, we didn't really know what to expect. We'd never really worked with a proper producer before. And he was really good. He made us do it. He made us come up to a level that we probably weren't aware of, and we did it and we matched it, but the album didn't sell very well, so I think that the record company wanted us to try somebody else. But Ian is still a good friend of mine. I love with being with Ian and chatting. He's a very knowledgeable man, and he's a great guitar player that people overlook. He's an amazing guitar
Mm.
player. You can think
Yeah, on
everything
some
else
of his tracks
producer.
you can hear it, can't you?
Yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah, well, that must, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it, when you say he made us do it? Because, leading up to that, I was reading about you putting stuff down on cassette and your little 4 track at home in Primrose Hill and stuff,
Mhm.
which I mean, obviously today's technology, people would be aghast at the kind of basic systems, but that kind of youthful hunger and desire to create, it just sounds like that's what you had. You
I
know,
did.
you,
I did. I think I sort of gave up everything else in my life just to do music. And sorry, that's a bit of banging going on. Just to do
Go
music.
back to the Carry On movies again. What
Can
I
you
was going to
hear
say
that?
is, what were you doing before you started songwriting? Did you have anything else in mind?
Oh yeah. Well, no. When I lived in Worcestershire, I left school. Didn't do very well at school. Not because I'm not intelligent, was because I just didn't respect the school went to. So I left school and then I got a job at Rover and Austin Rover in Longbridge, and I did
Hmm.
4 years of that. Met a girl, got a mortgage at 19, and then by the time I was 21, I just went, I don't want any of this. I don't want this. So I gave it all up and moved to London. And
Wow.
so in the fact that then I'd already done what most people want to achieve. Do you know what I mean? So I kind of felt I was like sort of free and sailing free. It was really good.
Yeah. I suppose in some respects, some people would see that as an escape, that you escaped that suburban life.
I did.
Some people love it. I mean, I moved to London when I was younger, and I've got school friends that did exactly what you've just described, and I still see them now. And like we've just gone two parallel lines, really, and it sounds like you did too. And
Yeah.
that freedom you got in London, I suppose, really you had nothing to lose. It was like, this is what I want to do, and I'm just going to go hell for leather to do it.
Yeah, I was just not. I think I proved to myself because I'd been told at school that you're always told at school. There's always a teacher that will go. One teacher will go that you're really creative, like my art teacher, and another teacher will go you'll never amount to anything. And I think that once I worked at Rover and I got a management job there and I started to do quite well. I believed that I could do what I wanted to do, really. And because I'd worked, my first job was working in a record shop when I was about 14. So I just got the bug for music and I just wanted to play. When I was writing songs, I wanted to play. I didn't have the confidence to go and do gigs until I met a band, really. So until I met Matthew.
So initially, when you were at Rover, I just want to go back briefly. When you were at Rover doing what I presume was an apprenticeship, and you were working your way up into the office, were you strumming at home? Were you watching Top of the Pops on a Thursday night and going up to your bedroom, or was it not even in your life at all?
Yeah, I mean, I had a 4 track, so I had a drum machine. I bought that in 1985. I had a 4 track, so I'd have been about 18.
Mm.
And yeah, I was every night. I would only go out when I'd written a song because I'd have something to celebrate. I was very focused on writing melodies and just getting better. I mean, when I look back and listen to some of those demo tapes, I was bloody terrible. But
But
there's
you
always
obviously,
hope.
but you had the structures. You kind of you were structuring songs.
I kind of think that when I moved to London, because I'd given up a lot, or I felt that I had, music was the only reason I was there. So when I used to go and see bands in London, small bands like at little clubs, that were around like, in Hampstead and places, I could tell that they had jobs. And when Dodgy used to go on stage, we didn't have jobs, and we were a lot more sort of eager and hungry for it. And so we were a bit more 100% than a lot of bands at the time. I always thought that, that we just sort of there was nothing else. That's why we had the Dodgy Club, because
Where
it
did
was.
the name come from? I mean, you know, because you were so committed and without realizing it, very professional. Because as you say, you were focused and dedicated,
Mhm.
and yet you chose a name that's totally opposite to being focused and dedicated. How come?
Yeah, that's kind of the nature of the band, I'm afraid. We're a bunch. I mean, I can think, but the chemistry between Matthew, myself, and Andy is. I've thought about this recently. We're all like the younger children, younger siblings, so we're all like sort of sheltered a little bit. We've all got older brothers and sisters,
Mm.
and so we're always cheeky, kind of getting away with stuff as you do as a younger sibling. And I think
I'm
that.
the youngest, so I know what you mean exactly.
Yeah, and I think that we were so there was no definite leader really in the band. It was kind of like we were all in it together. Anyway, we were looking for a name. We had a lot of interest from various people already, but we didn't have a name. We had a terrible name and we hated it.
Come on then, spill.
And it was called Color Sonic and it was terrible. We hated it and we didn't
Well, you
think it.
know what? Not long after that, if you'd been from Manchester, you'd have got away with that.
I know, I know. But
Is
then
this when
so
you
we
were playing the Is this when you were playing the little clubs in Kingston upon Thames?
Before, because we
Before
only
that,
started that when we started the Dodgy Club. So originally we just went out one night in London, and we were coming back, and we were all a bit inebriated and whatever, and we were just laughing, and we were everybody in the early '90s used the word dodgy. It was like one, oh, and it was everywhere, and it was like we all used it, and it was just like. And it was one of those things when sometimes it stares you in the face. And now how stupid it sounds, and it did sound the next day when we woke up and we went, oh my god, we've called the band Dodgy, but it it set us aside. It set us a different apart from everybody else in a way, and we always wanted to do our own thing and not follow the path that everyone else had. You know what I mean? We had our heroes, but we were more steeped in the classics of like the '60s and '70s. So that was what we wanted to be. And Dodgy was a bit of a joke, like the Who, Led
mm,
Zeppelin. Do you know what I mean?
mm,
Then we wanted to follow them in the sense that they all had, the Marquee and the Rolling Stones had they had these residencies, the Beatles, the Caverns. So we found a little venue where we didn't have to do pay to play, and we formed the Dodgy Club, and that was
right.
our club, and
And
that's how we got signed.
you started to build up that following, and then you got record company interest and stuff, build up a fan base, and
Yeah.
you got is it right? You got like a 6 album deal straight off the bat.
I don't know what we got, but we used to everyone used to phone us up and go, "Can I get on the guest list for the Dodgy Club?" And I'd say, it was record companies, I'd say there's no guest list, and we charge them a tenner and stuff like that to get in.
Only a tenner. You should have charged them record company buggers a lot
I
more.
know, I know. We didn't know, did we?
No.
But it was just one of those things, and we just sort of, we just did things our way. And I think by testing the water, by saying you're dodgy, I mean, when we went into the north, on our first tour, people wouldn't come and see us because they just thought we were dodgy. They didn't get the joke. They didn't get the humour that we were all, it was a bit of
Well,
an in
kind of
joke,
dodgy.
unfortunately.
I'm originally from the northeast, and dodgy in the northeast was like quite you're really dodgy. Do you know what I mean? Whereas down here it was a bit more tongue in cheek. It was a bit more
Yeah, yeah.
EastEnders, a bit more, all right, governor, he's a bit dodgy.
Yeah, yeah, it was a bit like that, and I suppose it was us pretending to fit in because we didn't know anyone in London. So that's why pay to play didn't work for us because they'd give us 200 tickets. We'd spend 30 quid, give us 200 tickets, and we didn't know anyone because we're from the Midlands. So I think it all played in. So and the eventuality is, I mean, if I was going to give anybody any advice about making it in the music industry, I'd like get your own venue, get your own club, or just hire, do you know what I mean? Once a fortnight, do a residency. That's
Yeah.
how you build things. You can't do it any other way.
No.
You can do it online now, can't you? Probably.
It's funny, isn't it? Because I can see the echoes of the discipline that you had when you were working at Austin Rover. You know, you ended up going down the management route and then pulled away. But when you came to put the band together, you know, gradually, you realized you needed this little core, this
Yeah,
basis to work from, you know,
yeah,
and you brought those skills that you probably didn't even know you had, those organizational skills,
yeah.
into the band.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I used to organise everything: posters, mail out lists, vans to get there, equipment, lighting things, and all that. Used to do it all, but I never worked. You see, that was
Yeah.
my full-time job.
Were you signing on?
Yeah,
Do you know what? So many acts, especially in the 80s, more so than the 90s when Thatcher was in and stuff, you know, that whole period of the 80s, so many great bands came through because they signed on and it became like a
uh,
student grant. You know, so many artists created great work in that time.
we needed that. I mean, it would have been, and I mean, this is why it's so difficult for younger people now because there's no safety net at all for
Mm.
anybody. And obviously, I mean, there's no point in going into what's going on in this country at the moment. But yeah, it's really difficult. It's really difficult. But we managed to be able to navigate it through. We moved out of central London. We moved to Holiday Home Hounslow, and we had like a big 7 bedroom house that was about 900 quid. We rented all the other rooms out, but we had a garage, and I built a studio in a
So
garage.
you rented the other rooms out, you know what I mean? You had it going on. That'll fund
Yeah,
this, that'll fund that. And then
yeah,
you could just, you see, if you don't have money worries, like if you can pay the bills, you can go off into a room and then just write songs.
100%.
Yeah, and that's what you did, and that's it, and you got your deal. So when you'd had some singles out, obviously, and an album out before Good Enough, which was your big. I know you had some singles out before then, but Staying Out for the Summer was a hit, wasn't it? First,
Yeah,
how did that feel? How does it feel when you go? Did you go on Top of the Pops with Staying Out for Summer?
yeah, yeah. You feel that like you sort of you're getting the praise that you always wanted. I mean, I think we always wanted more than anything was Matthew and I used to talk about this was we wanted to be respected for what we did, and we didn't know what that meant really, but we were putting a lot of effort in, and we love music, and I think you want to join that sort of that club, and I think that when Staying Out for the Summer became a hit, we became in that club, and it was, but it albeit different, different way, but yeah, we became in that club, and I thought, yeah, very
You
happy
were
about
suddenly
that.
accepted. You were
Yeah,
part of the people that appeared on Top of the Pops, appeared on Pop Quiz with Mike Reed. Did you
yeah.
appear on Pop Quiz, or was that before your time?
We didn't do that. We did, but Mike Reed was the first person to mention Dodgy on
Really?
radio. Yeah, he had Chaz Smash on from Madness, and Chaz mentioned that he'd been to see Dodgy at the garage the night before, and we were driving back home, I think, and we were driving home, and he just mentioned us, Chaz Smash, and Mike Reed went, "You've heard it here first, Dodgy. They're going to be a big band in a couple of years or whatever," and that was it. And we were
Oh,
like, looked at each other on the motorway, going back to our parents, going, "It's happening."
well,
So
that's
yeah,
fantastic. I mean, Mike. I mean, I know Mike, and he really loves looking at. He's always going to see bands. He loved, bringing new bands on. Of course, now he's got the Heritage chart, which is doing really well.
yeah.
And singles are, artists from the 70s, 80s, and 90s are just storming it with new material in the heritage charts. So it's fantastic.
It's
So
really good, really good.
yeah, well, he loves music. He's like us. He just loves music. So then you had In a Room, which got to number 12. And after In a Room, Good Enough came about. Do you want to tell us briefly? Because I know the story about the little cassette tape and stuff, and you recorded it once and you didn't like what you'd done, and then you ended up working with Hugh Jones. How did that
hmm
come about?
We'd worked with Hugh on our Homegrown album, so during the process of doing Homegrown, we started it with Ian Brody, and then Ian was like too busy with his own project Jollification, so he sort of like talked to us and said, we can help you get another producer. So we met Hugh Jones, who had worked with one of my favourite bands from the time, The Damned, also Echo and the Bunnymen. He'd worked with lots of bands, and Hugh came to meet us, and we just got on. We just got on, and he was brilliant. I mean, Hugh's a different producer to Ian Brody, whereas Ian's very musical and would always talk about chord shapes and inversions and stuff like that. Hugh would be getting the right sound. Hugh probably come from more an engineering background, as in mean engineering of mic placements and stuff like
Mm.
that, and just bloody hard work. He used to work 16, 18-hour days. So you'd get a lot of time in the studio. And I think Dodgy were really good in the studio because we were, yeah, we just knew what was expected of us and we always wanted the best. We didn't put any, I think we've never put a bad song out really. I mean, we've written a lot, but we've got a good filtering system.
But it's great because if he was really on top of the technical side, that freed you up to really work on the musical side, you know, and
Yeah,
on the lyric side and stuff.
yeah.
So would you write the songs before you got to the studio, or did you ever get in the studio and suddenly come up with things? What was your process, or didn't you have one?
Yeah, I mean, certainly the process on Three Piece Suite was, I mean, we would just finished in October. October '95. Yeah, October '95. We'd finished the homegrown tour, and then in November '95, we went into the studio to record Three Piece Suite, of which we had no songs apart from In a Room and a demo that I'd done on my cassette of Good Enough, Ain't No Longer Asking, One of Those Rivers, but they weren't finished. And so each day we'd come into the studio, we'd be working on a new song, and Matthew and myself would finish the lyrics and we'd get the arrangement done. So it was a very collaborative thing, really. Yeah, originally I would come up with the original ideas and then I couldn't finish them on my own. I mean, there was no way I could finish them on my own. So it was just like, it was such a brilliant time, to see an idea that you'd had like the night before, really, and then come in and then 2 weeks later you've got this brand new song. And the weird thing is, it was like, the album of 1990, a three-piece suite, was like the architect's drawings of an album, because we've just played a 27th anniversary tour of it, and we play it like a different band now. Even though the songs are the same, we're heavier because we were like, those original ones were the first time we'd ever played them. So if you're
Mm.
thinking of me, had never been played live until after we'd recorded it. So you'd never had that live experience to it. And now we've had so many years of doing it. It's a totally different beast.
Yeah, you're bringing different things to it now, aren't you?
Mm.
Different
It's a bigger
colours.
sound.
Yeah, that's great though. But that's all. That's almost part of maturing as an artist. The
Yeah.
songs are maturing with you.
Yeah, I like that though. I don't, I mean, I like to make things real. I would not like to be in a band where everything had to be perfect every day, because to me that's just, I like mistakes and I like brilliance, and sometimes we played in London a couple of weeks ago and I just felt that I was singing like, not new melodies, but I just felt that like I was reaching further into the music than I'd ever done before. And these are songs I've been playing for 25 years. I mean, that's amazing, right?
It's fantastic that you can still be exploring and taking it somewhere else and
Yeah,
different beats. I've just remixed a track of mine that I wrote a long time ago, and I've added, I've just put a new bass line on and some new strings, and it's lovely. It's almost
right.
like getting one of your favorite suits out
Hmm.
and just maybe putting some new buttons on and moving the pocket. It's an absolute thrill. I
Brilliant.
I love that, So it's great to
Yeah.
hear that you do that as well. So when I know you'd had a taste of it with staying out and in the room and stuff in a room, but the big single. I mean, when that got to number 4 and the Spice Girls were number 1, that was that part of the '90s was a buzzing part. We had the Britpop going on. There was a lot of buzz around. Did you feel part of that whole scene?
Yeah, definitely. We felt like a pop band finally, because we always didn't deny that we were a pop band. There was, if you remember back in the early '90s, the credentials were you had to be on an indie label to be written about or cool. So, which was pretty much anybody. But we'd signed to A&M Records pretty much straight away. And, we knew that what we had to do was to have pop singles. And we wanted to do that. We loved the Loving Spoonful and the Beatles,
Mm.
and Bob Marley. We loved classic music.
Did I read that the week that you were coming up with Good Enough, that you'd been listening to the Beatles and Karen Carpenter?
Yeah, yeah, it
I
was. And Bob
loved it when I
Marley,
read that.
that was in Primrose Hill actually, when me and Jackie we lived there, and I was listening to Here Comes the Sun
Hmm.
and Close to You, was it, I think? And it was just, and it's because they're all very major songs, like as in chord shapes, and things like that. And it was good enough was the first one I'd ever used a drum loop on, and I used a drum loop from the Meters from Zigaboo, the drummer from that, and I found
You
this little
loved him, didn't you?
sample.
You really liked him.
And I love him. I love the Meters and Alan Toussaint and Lee
Yeah.
Dorsey. They're big favourites of mine. And so I managed to get the sampler working, and it probably told you the idea of how accidentally I came up with good enough.
Was it the cymbal or a hi-hat or something?
Yes, it was, yeah. And I just
Yeah.
went boom, boom, looking for the beat. It was on C4 and it was on general MIDI. So it went boom, 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 ba-da. And I was like, oh, that's really good. So straight away I got my bass and did it. And then the song was born. And
But
it's
isn't it
born from that.
weird that quite often in the studio, sometimes something happens by accident
I
and
was,
it's not what you originally thought, but you think, but I love it.
yeah, totally. I love that freedom of being able to, like you said earlier, to be able to shut the door and not worry about life and be creative. And you make mistakes by just being creative, and you don't know what's going to happen. I do like that feeling, and I think that's why I do it, because I don't know what's going to happen, but I just like being in that creative space. It's why I've
So
always
you,
had studios.
yeah, whether they were four track in your lounge, like Primrose Hill,
Hmm.
or wherever, I mean, I'm sure you've got something in your home now.
Oh yeah, I've got a studio room. Yeah.
Yeah, good man, good man. You can wander down there on a night with an idea. I mean, do you wake up in the night humming a melody, or does that never happen to you? Would you get lyrics?
Yeah, lyrics. I write down everything all the time. I mean, I was listening to something the other day. I think when I hear something, I go, "Oh, that's brilliant." I listened to something the other day that was on. Oh, what's her name? Oh, she's really great. She's a poet, and she was on Desert Island Discs,
Hmm.
and she said something, and I just wrote it down. I just thought, write it down, and you keep all these things, and then
Hmm.
eventually you sort of I record things on my phone. But the whole thing is you've got to keep going back to it. That's the hard work, and keep going back
Yeah.
and writing, and it takes a lot of time. It takes people don't really realize that the process of writing a song, recording it, and getting it out there in this day and age is about 4 years. Do you
You
know what
know
I mean?
what?
In some ways.
It's really funny sometimes when I'm coming to the end of something that I've been slogging at, I'm knackered because it's been like you've almost dragged a bag of coal on your shoulders.
Mhm.
It's something you love, but it's like a labor of love.
Yeah, it is definitely a labour of love, because you can go off it and you can. I mean, a lot of people, I imagine, I'm not the only one, can struggle with if you don't get external help, outside help to help you get it over the finishing line. It'll just stay somewhere as a half-finished, baked idea that you really love, and you
Mm.
can play people and they go, "This is brilliant," and you go, "I need help to finish it though," because you can't get that second verse, or I don't really have problems with the middle eights and stuff like that, so I can do it, but. I kind of see the fun as more involving other people, involve their skills. Not everyone can come up with an original idea, but some people can help you finish them.
Did that have you always been like that, or has that come with age? When you were younger, did you think, nah, I can do it all myself? Or did you
No,
always have that open mind?
I think I always had it. I think I probably thought, and I did. I've done a couple of solo albums, but there's no doubt they are harder than doing your own album. A band album.
Talking about solo, so we get to like what was it, 1997 or 1998? Had you had enough of the because what a lot of people don't know is when you get a couple of hits and you had a big album and singles and stuff and you're touring relentlessly that you can just become exhausted. And I just wonder when you got to 97, 98, what was the reason that you wanted to step aside and go away from the band?
Do you know, there was so many reasons that I think we'd done it since I'd been in London since 88 or 89, and we'd worked really hard, but ultimately I just thought that I just had we just had our first son Marley, and in 1995, and I just felt that I wanted to be around my child more and be more of a parent, because I was coming up to being 30. Well, I probably was 30 by then, and I I just felt that the management weren't really listening to me and were just ignoring me, and there's a whole lot of pressure because, like you say, when you do have a successful album, then you're a business, and then you then command, like, you're getting bigger royalties or bigger advances,
Mm.
and I just felt that I was being was being taken for granted a little bit and just wanted to step back. And at the end, I couldn't find any reason to stay, which is such a terrible thing to say, but I just couldn't. I think I probably had some sort of breakdown in some way, just sort of like not a nervous one, but just a confidence breakdown. And I sort of stepped away from music altogether for, especially live music, for about 5 years. So I didn't play live. Went to production, didn't play.
Well, I stepped away and had a breakdown many years ago, and I think sometimes you need, not that you need it, but I think we're not capable sometimes of saying, right, I'm going to stop now. I think
Yeah,
we go, I know, I watched a podcast the other day, and Gary Barlow was on there, and I think he had a time when he had to step away, and he said the problem is you don't know when to stop, you don't know when to say no, and
yeah,
in the end, it knocks you over, and
yeah.
you're forced to step away. But in the stepping away, if you come back, or when you come back, you can sometimes come out with some great ideas and fresh ideas. Do you agree?
Yeah, I totally. I mean, I think that time away and doing other things really helped me, and I benefited from it massively because it also helped when we did get back together to realize that we hadn't fallen out. We were still musically compatible. We were still friends. It was everything around us and in between us within the industry that you're fluidly, in this ocean of record companies and stuff that was affecting us. And I think when we got back together, we couldn't even remember why we'd fallen out and if we had. And so we just picked up our guitars and started again. And we're really fortunate to have that. And it's just been the three of us as well. I mean, there are other members in the band, but the three of us that are creative. We've spent 30 years together. So when we're on stage, it's a very special thing now because it's like we've been doing a tour recently and we had Chris Helm come on stage from the Seahorses and Chris was doing a song with us. And I could see, because he plays solo a lot now, and I could see him just like leaning back and going, it's great having a band because you don't, all the rhythmic pressure and the melodic pressure isn't on you when you're a solo artist. Yes, it is. But when you're on stage with a band, you can leave it all to them and just like concentrate on. And it was brilliant. And that's the real special thing about being in a band for 30 plus years, you sort of like gel. It's almost like you're in the same shoes.
Well, people often describe being in a band. It's a bit like being in a marriage, and some marriages end really, really badly, and you can never go back and speak again. But sometimes you can become friends and hang on in there. And thank God that when you did break up, that you hadn't had that horrible, name calling or horrible whatever breakdown, so that when you went back, the slippers, it was like you putting your slippers back on again.
Yeah,
Then.
yeah. It definitely felt that. It felt like we were, but we had unfinished business. I think we still wanted to do it, and we still do. It's just even 10 years ago, it was easier to do an album than now. Now it's so hard. I mean, you were talking about Mike Reed and the sort of like the
The Heritage
charts,
chart.
the heritage charts. Well, I mean, I know that we've been talking to BMG and stuff like that because they did the Delamici thing recently, and so hopefully, I mean, I'd love it if I mean, we write songs all the time. We've got to do some work, but I'd love it to be able to do another album with more of a major label sort of thing, rather than just indies. We did one with Cherry Red, but they didn't. We did a good job, but I thought that they sort of didn't promote it well enough anyway. So it's very hard, You've got to get everything so right, haven't you?
Songs are like your babies.
Yeah, yeah,
And once that baby goes out to school, you still, you don't let it go.
yeah, yeah. And I think that was the hard thing with I mean, I spent so long and then it comes out and they didn't barcode it. And so it was never going to be eligible for charts. And you just think, oh, right. So I've just spent 3 years or 4 years writing,
Mm,
producing,
mm.
studioing, and then it just comes out and it's like, like a shopping bag blown in the wind.
But I love the fact that you're saying this because a lot of people on the outside of the industry, they open the paper, the magazine, and they think, where's this band gone? What happened to them? And they don't realize the whole process that goes in to coming up with a record, writing it, producing it, and then the whole marketing thing. You need a team you can trust.
You
And
do?
like you say, you didn't feel you had it with the last label
No,
you had. So you're
no.
going to step away, regroup, and maybe shop around and find the right fit this time,
Yeah,
hopefully.
I think that's what we're doing at the moment. And like I say, you know, we are like I suppose we're an example of what music is like in the 21st century, 2023, where live music is really important. Thank God.
So where are you now? I mean, it's 2023. You've got a great back catalogue. You've obviously still got a passion for writing, a passion for getting out on the road. And as you say, thank God for live performances, because look at Spotify, Amazon, and all those download sites. I mean, it isn't just peanuts, it's half a peanut you get.
Yeah, it is. I mean, the thing is, I mean, the reality is like, to finish something, you need to have a carrot, don't you? You need to be following something. You need to, be looking for something. Like when we started out, we were trying to get a record deal or we wanted to get a hit. Nowadays, if you're going to do an album, it's like, I think albums are gone for the time being, in a way. I think you've got probably more strength doing a single and doing that every 2 or 3 months, maybe, and then
Mm.
compiling an album at the end with a few extra tracks. I mean, that sounds like one way of doing it, probably not the greatest, but I feel that doing an album, especially after our last experience, doing an album is just like you do it and then you just put it out the window and drop it. It just
The
goes
thing
out.
is, it takes you years to get that album together. It takes you a long time. Whereas
Yeah,
if you bring out a single every few months, like you say, you've got the interest of the audience there, and that momentum creates
yeah.
the album.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And there you go. I mean, you've got to have singles and stuff like that. And I'm up for that. I mean, hopefully, I mean, it'll be next year now, but I've got Matthew coming over. Matthew's coming at the end of July, and we're going to spend a week together because we've got a few ideas for some lyrics and songs, and I've got a lot of music. So hopefully, we'll start getting an idea together for a new album or new couple of singles, and stuff like that. So that's my wish. I just want us to do it. I don't really particularly want to do it on my own. I would probably do another solo album, but it might be quite different. You've just got to keep doing things, really. I liked during the whole lockdown period, I did lockdown gigs and I loved them. I loved doing that because the audience still come up to me and go, I loved your lockdown gigs. And it was kind of like, it was something really, I don't know, survivalist. Do you know what I mean? I'm a musician. I need to play. So how am I going to do this?
And even though it was technology down the Zoom, it was intimate. It
Yeah,
felt intimate because we were all in this strange, like warlike bunker mentality, whether
yeah.
you agreed with lockdowns or not. It gave musicians a chance to be inventive again, didn't it?
I loved it. I loved it, and I was like, technically, I was, trying to work out how I'd get a really good sound out to people, and I managed that, and I did it. I did about 50 of them over, a year, and I absolutely loved it. And I did T-shirts, and I monetized it, so people wanted to buy T-shirts and stuff like that. It was
You're
wicked.
such a great businessman. It's fantastic. Start planning. What about your videos? Do you throw ideas in for your videos as well, or
We haven't done a video for a long time. I can't remember, but yeah, we did. Every video we did, we came up
you've
with the
got to
idea.
have a video for the next single? So when you're putting together this next single, start picturing in your head, because my Read on the Heritage chart, which is a great springboard for artists, because this week's top five is Paul Young, it's Nick Kershaw, it's Texas, it's
Wow.
me, right? And we've
Yeah.
all got videos, and they get shown on every Sunday night. It goes all over the world.
Wow.
So you're going to go down on tour. And are you going to Australia soon?
We're coming to Australia in September, which I'm very excited about.
Great. Had you been there before? Is this the first time?
First time to Australia for
Oh,
me.
fantastic. I'm sure they're going to love you. So the future's bright. You've got loads, you've got new songs coming up, hopefully collaborations,
Yeah.
and hopefully get another deal and get the video and stuff.
I think so. I think after this year, and especially after we played the Forum in London last weekend, and I don't know if you remember back in the 90s, London gigs, because we worked out that we were a London band, yeah. When we
Mhm.
did London gigs, there was always a lot more pressure because it was where the press was, and your management would be going, "You got to be good tonight." Why? So I would be my answer. We're always going, you'd never really enjoy a London gig
No.
until last week, and I went there and I just found myself, it was just like any other gig and it was brilliant, and it was like, and then I came off stage and went, that was a London gig, man, that's amazing. Do you know what I mean? And I
And the
think that
Forum is such a great venue, isn't it? It's a
it
proper.
It's an
Proper
amazing
venue.
venue, and I've seen so many bands there over the years. And it seemed small from stage, and we just smashed it so much, and it just felt so good, and that gave me a real kick, really. I think, for me, it's like we always have been a very good live band, but at the moment we're like the best we've ever been. And we're playing Three Piece Suite in its entirety in its running order with all the little remixy bits in between. And it's so much fun. It's like you can see it's a concept album without even us saying it was a concept album. It's brilliant. It's so much fun. I don't want it, none of us wanted to stop touring it. So we're going to do it again in November.
Fantastic. So you're on a roll. You're on a momentum now.
Yeah,
You've got it
even
there.
if it's just going back over things we've done 30, 27 years ago. But yeah, I mean,
But you're addressing those things. It's like you said earlier. You are playing old songs, but you're bringing to them so many
oh yeah,
new
we're
layers. You
we're
know.
bringing them to life, and the weirdest thing is that from these gigs, the amount of young people that are at our gigs who weren't even around the first time,
Do you
which
feel
is
funny
really
saying the
mad.
phrase? Do you feel funny saying the phrase "young people"?
Young people.
Yeah. Do you feel funny saying it? Because how old do you feel? I mean, you don't know. I'm not bothered how old you are, but do you still feel? How do you feel? Young?
Mm,
What do you feel?
I think music automatically, well, for me anyway, I've always felt like quite a young person. I, I, I I used to be. I was a teacher and stuff like that when I left in the lost years. So I've always got on with kids, and I've worked with kids at pupil referral units and helping them songwrite. So I don't have a problem with kids and that sort of crossing that at all. So music keeps you young because you're always interested in music, I
Mm,
think. The only thing that makes me feel old is tiredness, really. I think, you can't escape the fact that if you do drive 600, 700 miles in a weekend, that come Tuesday morning, you're going to be knackered. Do you
yeah.
know what I mean? And that's
Yeah.
real. In the old days, I never used to bother. I'd be out again, but now, yeah, and I think that, if I'm honest, like songwriting, when I was younger, I never stopped. But now, because I'm doing so much, sometimes it's really hard to start again. Just to go into the studio and turn everything on, and do you know what I mean?
It's
That's
like
a
your
really
brain
difficult
is so
one.
full of other stuff. It's like you need to find that box, the songwriting box, drag it out the cupboard,
Yeah,
unlock it, and go. Am I gonna look in this box today?
exactly, exactly. And I'm not going to do anything else. And that's it. So it comes down to planning, and it comes back to another management thing, time management. So you have to like sort of like go right in the morning. I mean, sometimes I'm better writing songs in the morning or in the evening. So I'll just try and work out my day. Like today, I went to the dump and went swimming this morning. Not together. I went to the dump first and then went swimming. And then this afternoon, I knew I had this. I've got quite a lot of things to do this evening, but I've got to do a bit of practicing for the gig tomorrow. And then I've got to tidy my van and pack my van because I've got to leave at 9 in the morning. So yeah, all
Fantastic. But
planned.
it's great that you've got a busy life. You said we you saw gigs and you knew that those people had jobs and you knew that their mind wasn't 100% on it. Now 20 or 30, whatever years later it is, from good enough in the top 10, you're still that person that's 100% dedicated. And yeah, you've got your other bits of your life, but you can still see that you love it.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. It is my life. It was. I always think it's weird. So that 21-year-old that left Rover and made a decision to move to London, I still live by his decision. I think that's pretty amazing.
And it's worked.
Yeah, if you've got a dream, follow it.
There you go, mate. We couldn't end on a better place. I just want to add a little note and say, yes, schlepping here, schlepping there, doing this. Picasso was still going into his studio at 90 and painting. So there's our role model. Okay.
That is our role model. I absolutely totally agree with that. I mean, yeah, I totally agree. Music's my life. I live everything I do and read and see. I try and apply to music. It's weird. I mean, I'm listening to an amazing book at the moment about Nick Drake. I love Nick Drake, by the way. But I'm listening to an amazing book about Nick Drake, who died unfortunately at 26 years old. Three albums, but they're still probably the three greatest albums in my record collection in some ways, acoustic albums anyway.
When you
And
say
just
you're listening, are you one of those listeners rather than a reader?
I'm an Audible person because I do so many miles now. I find Audible has been brilliant for me, just to listen to stories when I'm driving. I don't, I concentrate on the road, and then you've got this story going on. I love it. I read at home, obviously, but I love Audible.
Well, listen, Nigel, it's been great talking to you.
And you, Daniel, lovely, man.
And I think you're on a high, and it's great that you're on a high. You've got a hunger still. You're older, you're wiser, you're more creative, and you've still got that youthful energy. So more power to you, mate.
And I'm more understanding, I think. When you're younger, you can be quite cruel when you're younger. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes, not mean and purposely, but you can just be quite focused and headstrong. I think I'm a lot more open now, and
Were you a bit more impatient in those days?
Yeah, definitely. I think everyone was, but I'm a lot more patient now, and I feel like I'm a better person now, which is one of my lyrics from a song.
Nigel, Nigel Clark, it's been fantastic talking to you. I look forward to new Dodgy material next year.
Brilliant. Yeah, man.
And good luck with these gigs. The audiences are in for a treat. I saw Eric Clapton on stage a while ago, and you're talking about that guitarist who was coming from the Seahorses and guesting with you, and he just laid back and played. Clapton on stage, surrounded by this fabulous band, and he just sort of lays back and plays, and he's in his own little haze, his own world. And I can imagine that when you're on stage, you're just in it.
You're like treading water. It's like you're sort of like they're all around you. It's like you're submerged, but being held up by them. So it's amazing. I've been on a boat, I suppose, but it's amazing. It's an amazing feeling, and I know it now. And I've really known it this year. I've really noticed it this year and we've only done about 10 gigs so far this year, but we've got about another 50 ahead of us, and it's just like, this is the way it's going to be. Amazing.
Fantastic, mate. I wish you all the best.
Cheers,
with
Daniel.
The next Dodgy album, and I'm going to definitely come and see you because you give off such a great vibe, mate.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you.
All the best, Nigel.
You take care, mate. Thanks a lot.
Take care. Thank you. Thanks, Nigel. It's been great talking to you. Can't wait for the new material next year. And of course, we can see Dodgy out on the road for the rest of the year. Thank you for joining us this week on. Hope you'll join me again very soon.